Now that basically most of the final 7-man rosters of the 2019 Overwatch World Cup teams have been announced, I've decided to look at who's been selected and give my thoughts and opinions on the players that have been selected, as well as seeing how close my earlier predictions for the squads were. So today, let's start with the top 2 seeded sides in South Korea and Canada. Beginning with the Korean lineup, in the past week they announced both their top 12 and final 7-man rosters. In their top 12 at DPS are Architect, Carpe, Decay, Haxel and Nene. The tanks chosen were Mano, Choi Hyobin and Janu, whilst at support, the 4 players selected were Animo, Bedosen, IDK and Kariv. Obviously at a first glance, this final 12 does seem quite interesting, especially given the notable absentees such as Gesture, Prophet, Fury, DM and Jonak. However, from what I've read, it appeared that these players decided not to compete for the side this year, which makes their absence make sense. That said, there are others missing, especially from the Titans like Bumper, Slime and Twilight. According to a thread which I read, which translated some of Krusty's thoughts on this roster, and I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Krusty felt stylistically, Bumper and Twilight struggled when partnered with other players in mixed-up rosters, which made their inclusion very difficult in his opinion, unless he brought them all into the fold, which he couldn't do since he found it easier translating his coaching style onto other players like Mano. Consequently, without Twilight, Slime struggled to synergize at the support position as well. Regarding the Stage 3 champion DPS duo of Ding and DM, with DM skipping it made bringing the pair in as a synergized duo impossible, and whilst Krusty thought very highly of Ding's Farah and Sombra, he thought his other heroes were not as strong and didn't suit the upcoming meta as well as other players. He thought that Libero, Fletter and Architect were very similar picks to one another, and ultimately went with his own Shock player, who he knew more about and was more comfortable coaching, whilst he balanced this out by leaving out the other Shock members in Violet and Rascal. So in regards to the initial top 12, I think personally, whilst this might not be the strongest South Korean team we've ever seen, and personally I would have gone for other options, I can understand Krusty's logic and reasoning for most of the selection he made here, with probably the weakest player here in Bedosen, at least being understandable, with other top options Jonak and Twilight being ruled out of the running. As for the final 7 chosen for this year though, in the end, Krusty went for Mano at main tank, Choi Hyobin at flex tank, Carpe, Haxel and Architect at DPS, and lastly, a support duo of IDK and Bedosen. Let's start with the simplest position to look at in my opinion, which is at tank. Mano was the only and obvious choice from the top 12 that was originally submitted, and personally, he was my clear frontrunner of every Korean main tank at the minute. He provides stable, quality consistency on the front line, whilst being strong on all the heroes at the position, so his inclusion here makes total sense. The same can also be said for Choi as well, especially with Fury out of the running. Just based upon his recent form, I'd have to say he's looked stronger on both Diva and Roadhog over Janu, while Cesario for both is neither's bread and butter. Add in the fact that Krusty is his coach, and will know how to best utilise his abilities and skill, and I think this tank partnership was the best it could be brought together from those available. At the support position meanwhile, I can understand if there's a bit of confusion as to the final selection of IDK and Bezosen, with Animo and Kariv. Again, looking into it, Krusty found that the best support synergies could be found by placing IDK with Bedosen and Animo with Kariv. Then following internal scrims, he believed that the better performers were IDK and Bedosen, hence why they were selected. I can see where he's coming from in regards to IDK, who's been one of the most underrated players in the Overwatch League over the course of this season, with consistently strong players at this position, and with a proactive style which is very positive for his team. This is why I understand leaving out Animo, who I think is a brilliant support, especially in regards to staying alive and keeping his team that way as well, but it makes sense Krusty would prefer a slightly more proactive option, whose play is more similar to Moth. At flex support, whilst it would be fair to say that Bedosen hasn't exactly played as well as he did in 2018, he's still a quality player who seemed to do really well in the scrims compared to Kariv, we mustn't get caught up with after his incredible run of performances during Stage 3, as he does seem to be more of a hot and cold player, so from that point of view, I can understand this selection. Finally at DPS, the final 3 chosen in Architect, Carpe and Haxel, I can't have too many complaints about, with their inclusion over a player like Nene, whose own performances have been a little inconsistent, making sense. However, personally, whilst this is still one hell of a DPS trio, I think they really should have included Decay in over Carpe, or Architect in my opinion. All 3 have made strong starts to Stage 4, and have returned to DPS, but I have to say that Decay has been the most dominant from what I've seen, and I'd like to see him included. Ultimately, however, whilst I don't think this is the strongest possible Korean lineup, I can understand Krusty's reasons for his selections at every position, and this is still an incredibly strong side. It's a clear favourite to win the World Cup once again this year, even if my prediction only saw one similarity in the selection of Mano. But what about the challengers to South Korea for this year? Obviously, let's start with the second seed and one of the historically strong performers on the Overwatch World Cup stage, in Team Canada. They too have announced their top 12 and top 7, so again let's begin with seeing who made their top 12. At Tank, the final 4 were XQC, Note, Chain, and Mufin. DPS came down to Shawful, Agilities, Mangachu, and Acadia, while support was between Bani, Crimzo, Awesome Souls, and Zolik. This top 12 didn't spring too many surprises on us generally. It was great to see that XQC wanted to come back and compete again this year, with perhaps the only question at tank being the choice between Aqua and Chain, but I can't have too many complaints here. At the DPS position, the only question mark was Acadia's inclusion over Azar, with the other Overwatch League trio an absolute lock to make the top 12, from even before this process began, whilst there's also a similar story at the support position, with the only interesting absentee being Rolf, who I probably jinxed out of a spot after I idiotically completely forgot to mention him in my Who Makes Team Canada video. In regards to that video, it was funny to see that my prediction that Team Canada's Final 7 would be exactly the same as 2018, which actually came true, with XQC being selected at main tank, Note at flex tank, Shawful, Agilities and Mangachu making up the DPS trio, whilst Bani and Crimzo are Canada's support duo once again for this year. Of course I don't want to repeat what I said in that video, with most of the players' inclusion in the Final 7 making complete sense and have made the same choices before the tryout started. However, after watching the tryout process, I have to say that my own opinion on who should make the Final 7 changed, and I was very surprised to see it didn't in the end for Team Canada. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, then I suggest you look up some of the highlights from Canada's scrims, but others will know the debate I'm about to discuss is at the flex tank position, between Note and Mufin. It wouldn't be an overstatement in my opinion to say that Mufin completely dominated Note for the most part throughout all the trials that were scrimmed, both on D.Va and Roadhog. It was clear watching from XQC's point of view, he had a much better synergy when playing with Mufin, who was a lot more vocal in communication and looked far more comfortable flexing onto Roadhog as part of the Pool-Pork duo, which has proven to be so strong in the current meta. Note, meanwhile, didn't look at all comfortable on the Roadhog himself and took every available opportunity to pick D.Va himself for hero as much as he could. You could tell this was frustrating XQC, who was struggling on Orisa in this partnership with Note, and it would seem to me that he'd probably prefer to play alongside Mufin if he kept up that consistency in terms of performance. Therefore it was very surprising, given how black and white it appeared in the scrims, that Mufin only made the bench, with Note keeping his top 7 spot. I can understand it in terms of differing levels of experience between the pair, as well as the relationship between Note and the coaches Jane and Tickety. It can't be denied though, there's a sniff of nepotism about this final decision, but at the end of the day, it's still too early in my opinion to pass judgment on this decision, with quite a bit of time for Note to work on his Roadhog play and synergy alongside XQC, so I can only say this is a wrong decision retrospectively if these issues reappear for Canada at the World Cup. The only other thing I'd say is that while some might question Mangachu's inclusion in the top 7 after a poor scrim performance, you need to bear in mind that he was horribly ill at the time of the scrims, and had just returned from the Atlanta homestand weekend. And given how well he's been performing in the Overwatch League generally since, I think his inclusion makes total sense. And whilst Bunny hasn't been playing, I think he did alright in the scrims to earn a starting spot over Zolik in the top 7. With a new meta being played for the 2019 Overwatch World Cup, it'll be interesting to see how this exact repeat of the 2018 roster will adapt, and whether they will be able to find another top 3 finish and challenge the very best, like South Korea, or instead, if their time at the top of the international stage starts to fall out of reach, but they certainly have the quality in their side to achieve the former. Especially when we take into account the recent performances of their stars like Shawful have been given a fresh lease on life with their return to DPS play, whilst the rise to power of heroes like Mei and potentially even Torb play perfectly into the hands of their third option, Mangachu. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching my video on the final 7-man rosters for Teams South Korea and Canada, and I hope you enjoyed. We'll be back on Wednesday as I take a look at the 3rd and 4th seeds, China and France, after my Overwatch League power rankings tomorrow. So if you enjoyed and don't want to miss out, then please like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing Overwatch World Cup coverage and content. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.